This is a BMW Z3 convertible that's hiding a bit of a secret under the bonnet. When I was looking for a project car, it had to fill 3 conditions. 1, it had to be a convertible. I've not had one for 4 years, and I miss roof down motoring. 2, it had to be from a marque that I've never had before. I tend to sort of settle on things like Lexuses and Minis, and I wanted something different, something that I hadn't tried before. The Porsche didn't really work out all that well. The bill itself came to, including all parts and labour and stuff, was £5,092.90. But I was tempted to try another German marque. And 3, it had to be supercharged. Now, I've had loads of naturally aspirated and turbocharged cars before, but I've never owned something with a supercharger, which gives you a bit of a hint about what's under the bonnet of this Z3. I'm with Taylor Hetherington from Taylor Made Cars, and this is his, well, now soon to be mine once I've paid for it, Z3 convertible with a supercharger. Now, there's a bit of a story to this one, even before you bought it. So what is the background to this car?
So the chap that built it, his name was Glyn. He bought it years ago. I can't remember what year, but it was years and years ago. He imported the supercharger kit from Florida.
Yeah.
And paid a hefty 3,700 quid for it.
It's quite spicy.
And it added 20 brake horsepower. Because all he did was bolt it on and didn't really do any supporting mods.
Right.
He had it for years, took it to the Nürburgring, but apparently when he took it there, he never made it out on track because there was a crash, the track closed. He never actually made it onto the track. Cut a few years down the line, he sold it or passed it on to his son, and he had it for years as well. So it's been in the same family for years and years. It then threw a belt because the pulleys broke and the pulleys seized up, not on the supercharger, on the actual auxiliary belt system itself. He then couldn't find the parts, decided to put it up for sale.
Yep.
I bought it for 670 quid, whatever it was, 650 quid.
Which is quite, that's a lot of car for the money, even in broken form. That's a good deal.
Even without the supercharger on it, it's cheap because it had only done 70-odd thousand miles at the time, or 80,000 miles at the time.
And like kind of stock these around to like 2-3 grand, depending on, a little bit more in the summer. But
and yeah, it was really nice. It had low owners, loads of paperwork with it. He kept every receipt, photos of when he put it on, absolutely everything. So I bought it, and then we went to town on it, and I spent 6 or 7 grand on parts.
Dang. So what sort of things, to fix the bit with the issue with the auxiliary belt, but what else have you put on it?
So it was the pulleys, and then when I first drove it, I'll be honest, it was quite exciting, but it was a little bit slow. Yeah. And I expected it to be quicker than it was.
Because what are these stock with the 1.0?
140 brake.
It's not really much, is it?
Not much, and it was about 160, 170 brake with a supercharger on it, which is okay, but it's still not a massive amount. So the first things we did, now, what did we do first? I think we did... I think it was coilovers and brakes first. So it's got BC Racing coilovers on it, EBC pads and discs. I then had these wheels rebuilt. I got these from an E36 that I bought ages ago, and I had them rebuilt by the wheel specialists in St Albans. And then Tyre Street sent out some 651 Sports, and they went on it as well. And then it went to... Sorry, the first thing we did was the roll cage. Rich's Fabrications made that. That's custom half cage. So it had that, wheels and tyres, coilovers, brakes, and then it went to Bruno's at BDS Motorsport. And he did, we did so many late nights working on this car because obviously we had it all booked to go to the Nürburgring in it. We did a cheap car challenge. I say cheap, it was like, I think the budget was 5 grand. Yeah. And
feels like you kind of spent more than that though.
I did spend a bit more than that, but we won't tell anyone. So yeah, it then went to Bruno's, and we did BDS high lift cams. We did a cam timing change. We did rocker cover gasket, a full service. We did, what else did we do to it? Bigger injectors. We messed about with the injectors for ages. Standalone ECU. Then we put it on the dyno, we were getting really good power figures, and then all of a sudden the power just dropped off and we lost loads of power. We couldn't work out why. And then I looked around the back of the car and realised that sort of most of the exhaust was on the back of the car. It had just shot it out of the tailpipe. Right. Where there's obviously too much back pressure or whatever because of the supercharger and the power we were running. So I actually nicked this stainless steel exhaust off of Bruno's race car.
I mean, pure profit right there.
Yeah, so this is a full custom exhaust for Bruno's race car. Really, really nice exhaust. We put that on, the power then went back up. We put that on at about 2 o'clock in the morning. The power then went back up, we did a bit more tuning, and we managed to get a really solid figure of, I think, about 220 brake, which was really nice. It was really linear, it was very safe as well. So we did that, and then the Tillit carbon fibre single piece bucket seats turned up.
Yep.
And I fitted those, and I was absolutely
Which is just such a
over
natural
them.
fit for a BMW
Yeah.
Z3. Just
Yeah, they're super cool. So they went in, and I did a few other little bits and bobs to tinker it up. And then at the time, I put a full livery on it. I put all my stickers down the side of it. Looked really cool. So we did the trip to the Nürburgring. The only problem I had was it threw a belt because one of the pulleys wasn't aligned properly.
Oh, right, okay.
Sorted that out. It's been absolutely fine since. Got it back, and Bruno said, look, can you bring it back? I want to fettle with it a little bit more. So I took it back to Bruno's, $2,500 down the line. I had a new clutch, a 6-speed gearbox, because it revved a bit high on the motorway. The 6-speed gearbox is from a 1 Series, a 120i.
Okay.
And they bolt straight in. You have to do a couple of little modifications. I think it's got a custom prop shaft in it. And he put another standalone ECU in it, and even bigger injectors. And we're now at about 250 horsepower.
Which is a lot of power for a car this size.
Yeah, a lot. And 266 newton meters of torque, which is the important bit. And the dyno printout is like a ruler.
Yeah.
It's just fully linear the whole way through. There's no spikes in power. It's as smooth as silk.
Have you done like a 0 to 60 or test or anything
I
like
haven't.
that?
I've never done a 0 to 60.
That'd be interesting.
It'd be really interesting. Obviously, it's a bit quicker top end now as well because it's 6-speed.
Yep.
And yeah, it's really, really nice. It's also got a rev limiter raise and hard cut limiter.
Okay.
So the rev limiter, I think, is set at about 7,200 RPM. And obviously it pops a few little flames when you hit the limiter. It's really fun. So it's a really, really good bit of fun. I absolutely love it. And today is actually a really sad day for me because I really don't want to sell this car, but I've got loads of other projects on the go. I've got loads of cars, and sometimes you just need to free some space and cash up.
I think it's always hard when you have a lot of project cars and there's always something else to do.
Yeah.
And also, anyone who watches this or anyone who watches videos on YouTube, we all know that there's nothing more exciting than the next car.
Yeah.
Nothing more intriguing, exciting, dangerous, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, almost as soon as you bought it, you're like, next one. And yeah, my wife will definitely attest that, you know, even when I've said, I'm buying this, I'm like, or we could also get this as well. Yeah. And I'm excited because, you know, this is my first ever BMW.
Is it really?
For
That's
100%.
amazing. Fair play.
So obviously it's not stock.
Yep.
Been fettled, but this is why I'm interested because the main reason why I wanted to buy this was essentially it ticked 3 things. One, I wanted a brand new Mach.
Yeah.
Because I was just going to go for like a R52 mini convertible. Which is nice, but you know it's 4 seats, so it's quite useful for the family, but too predictable.
Well, sort of 2.5 seats.
Well, I mean,
really
my kids are still young. They can fit better in that than they could in this. So you know, fitting kids in the boot probably a little bit frowned upon.
A little bit illegal.
Yeah, a little bit. Had to be a convertible because I've not had one for 4 years, and I've never owned a supercharged car.
Okay.
So when you put this car up, I'm like, well, it does everything I possibly need.
All the boxes, apart from the practicality bit.
Apart from the practicality, and this is actually going to be my new daily because the Punto is broken.
Brilliant.
So yeah, this is going to be interesting, and I'll probably need to get things like a cap put on because it's quite loud here.
Yeah.
I don't know how loud it's going to be outside.
It's actually all right.
It's not too bad.
It's very livable, especially with a 6-speed gearbox. When it was 5-speed on the motorway, it was quite hectic.
Yeah.
Now it's
because what was that
really
revving to on the motorway?
High 3s, nearly 4,000 RPM.
It's quite, and you know, a good sort of 1,000 miles to the Nürburgring and back. That's quite tiring.
Yeah, because when you're in Europe, you sit at 130 kilometers an hour, which is about 80 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it was revving really high. So now that it's got the 6-speed in it, it's sort of high 2s, about 2,700 RPM. Yeah, it's really nice.
Now here's a question: MPG, not really a big focus for project cars, but you know, obviously it's got the 6-speed gearbox.
Yep.
What are we doing?
Because of the way it's tuned really well. I've never actually measured it.
Okay.
But the amount that it uses, I would expect when you're cruising on the motorway, it's probably doing close to 30 miles to the gallon.
That's pretty impressive. I was expecting 20s. If I'm honest.
The only thing I will say, it's got quite a small fuel tank.
Okay.
So you do have to top it up fairly often. I don't know how many litres, but it's about 40, 50 quid to fill it, I believe. It might be a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
that's nice. I mean, with the Cayenne, it's like 150.
Yeah.
Quid, so that's nothing. That's
yeah,
fine.
It's nice. But yeah, I will be really, really sad to see this car go. Obviously, I did mention to you earlier, if anything goes wrong with it, or you need to maintain it or whatever, I'd love to see it back. 100%. I'd love to work on it. I'd love to keep it in top tip condition for you.
Yep.
And also, when you come to sell it down the line, unless you get amazingly attached to it like I did, then I would like to buy it back.
Oh, 100%, yeah. First refusal, that is no problem at all. Right.
I do really appreciate that. But yeah, as you can probably tell by looking at all the other stuff in here, I do get too attached to cars and end up keeping them for ages.
It's quite a difficult position to be when you're a car dealer.
It is really difficult, yeah. Because I buy cars and go, I really like this. And Luke goes, no, no, and then he won't let me drive it.
Because how many have we got? 3 here, another 3 there. You've got how many outside?
There's about 13, 14 outside.
That's quite a lot of cars.
Yeah, some of those are for sale. I've got some next door as well in storage, which are for various videos or V2 episodes that I'm doing at the moment. But I mean, personal cars like my Mini, for example, that was another one that we took to the Nürburgring. That is one that I'm ridiculously attached to.
Well, you've invested so much kind of time and pain and all that sort of stuff. And also, it's a Mini, which is also just a fabulous car anyway. There's some cars you can't sell.
Yeah. Like that, for example.
Yes.
The 6 Series.
Yeah, and that is looking in absolute mint condition.
Thank you. Yeah, it's getting there. We're going to do some bits to that in the near future and take it on a really cool road trip.
Yeah, that's going to be cool.
Yeah.
Right, I should probably give you some money. First drive in the Supercharged Z3. It is pleasingly analog. It's probably the best way to describe it. But it is amazing to be in a convertible. And what a day for it. Beautiful weather. Hour and a half back to home. Let's get on it. My initial thoughts, I need to figure out a way of raising the seats. I can't get it back any further because of the cage. It feels like I'm really in and low. I think I'm wearing slightly the wrong shoes to drive it. I'm wearing my boots, and I think I need something a little bit slimmer when I'm driving this car. Okay, so it is the very next day. Essentially, after I left Taylor's, I got stuck in traffic for like an hour. It wasn't terribly interesting content. So we're back home, which means, hey, we made it home, which is not always guaranteed when you buy a new car. I was nervous-ish. I mean, I think one of the benefits of buying a car off of a fellow YouTuber is you kind of know the story. And with this car, the only problem that it had really was, it had a bit of a fueling issue, which was solved thanks to Bruno and the guys at GDS Motorsport. And then obviously the auxiliary belt thing, and both of those have been resolved. And because we'd been stuck in traffic, well, I got to really test out the cooling system. And because obviously this is a supercharged car, it means that the actual temperature is a lot higher, the under bonnet temperature is a lot higher. So if there was going to be a coolant issue, that was essentially the time. So it didn't overheat. The temperature gauge stopped working at one point, but I think that's just a loose connection, if I'm honest. But other than that, it was fine. And not as uncomfortable as I thought it would be. This is on coilovers. It's a fairly stiff setup. And obviously I've got bucket seats that are carbon fiber. With carbon fiber seats, there's not much give. When going over like a big pothole, you definitely feel it. But other than that, the day-to-day, based on essentially 4 hours worth of driving so far, is surprisingly comfortable. Okay, on a really undulating, bumpy road, you have to watch your speed, but that's just because I think of the ride height more than anything else. It's actually a surprisingly pliant car, which I wasn't really prepared for, because when you're buying someone's essential track project, it's going to be hard as nails. It's going to be bone jarring. You're going to have your fillings knocked out. Not that I have any, but if I did, I'd be worried about them in most kind of track cars. But this isn't too bad. And what I'm also impressed about, and hopefully once traffic dies down, I can show you, is the power. Woohoo! Supercharger noises! Oh my days! All right, let's see how much speed we can carry into this corner. Onto the brakes. Oh, it's so flat in the corners. Oh my word. a deeply silly car, but my God, does it pull well. Taylor, BDS, Bruno, this is an absolute firecracker. Oh, my days. So stupid. Oh, this handles really well. And this is what it's been missing from my life. You know, the Cryon was great. It was a fabulous car when it was working, but it was a big, heavy SUV, and that is not what I needed in my life. What I needed from my next car was a bit of driving feel. Why did I buy this car specifically? Because buying someone else's project car is always a little bit risky. You're buying kind of someone's troubles off of them, essentially, when you're buying a project car from somebody else. Originally, my plan was to get like a net new car, be it like an MX-5 or like a supercharged Mini or something like that, and then modify it from then. And I started to think about the numbers side of it, which is, I know, deeply tedious, but I think when you're creating content, it's really important that, you know, you don't essentially overspend. And so I thought, okay, well, buying a car is going to be sort of 3 or 4 grand, particularly like with an MX-5. You want to make sure you're buying one that's in good shape. Hold that thought. You buy a project car, that's going to cost you 3 or 4 grand if you want to have a decent one, and then you need to factor in your budget for mods, and then obviously installation of mods, because not all of them, you know, not all of them I can install on my own, so I need to pay someone to do some of them. You know, I haven't really done much suspension work, coilovers, all that sort of stuff. So it was going to be, you know, at least that again on mods, and I thought, well, that's a lot of money, that's a lot of time. You know, I have started a new job, so time is kind of a bit of a problem for me right now. So I thought, you know, essentially, even if I buy a car at 3 grand, I'm probably going to have to pay about sort of 4 grand in mods. What could I buy that was already kind of pre-sorted? And so when Taylor's car came up, it seemed like a no-brainer, because I know the story, I know the history, it ticks a load of boxes in the car I want to buy, and it's pre-modified, so I can essentially, you know, it felt like a cheat code. I could skip to the end and, you know, go on track days and stuff like that and not have to worry so much about the building part. It's very silly, this car. It's very silly. But that's why I bought it. I wanted something that was silly, that was essentially just for me, because a lot of my kind of more recent cars have just been, well, kind of performance but practical. I wanted something stupid, and a supercharged BMW Z3 on coilovers on semi-slicks, I think that ticks all of the stupid buttons. I think that brings it to the end of this episode. If you've watched this far, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you consider liking and subscribing. And with that, I'm going to get this thing home